Our next reader is the outgoing managing editor of the Rothala Review and will receive his MFA in creative nonfiction. He holds a bachelor's degree of science in computer science and mathematics from the Metropolitan State University of Denver and has been published in their arts and literary magazine Metrosphere. He has lived in Colorado, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. He currently works as a stay-at-home puppy dad in Villanova with his husband Tim and their 2 dogs, Dexter and Jordan, where he cooks, blogs, and plays guitar. Please welcome Christopher Eckman.
The day before my 31st birthday, I board a brand new double-decker 747 in Newark, bound for Catania by way of Frankfurt. The plan is to spend 7 days with writer friends studying in Sicily while staying on the small island of Ortigia and 2 days on the island of Malta. I've never traveled abroad without my husband, I haven't had a job in 6 years, and I'm playing whack-a-mole with a voice inside my head that keeps asking me, why are you even doing this? By the time I'm unpacked, it's my birthday, and we all go out to dinner in a small pizzeria on the large square that sits in front of the cathedral next to our apartment. I'm given a card signed by everyone, and I'm serenaded happy birthday in multiple languages at dinner. We spend the meal at a banquet-style table covered in different kinds of pizza while the room circulates the smell of fresh bread and cheese. And for the first time since moving away from Colorado, I'm going to get emotional. I spend my birthday surrounded by friends. A few days into the trip, I volunteered to go out with a small group on a pilgrimage to Castiglione de Sicilia, a small village that rests on a hill on the north side of the volcano of Mount Etna, where the grandfather of a brother and sister among us emigrated from. I almost stay back. I'm tired and I feel the effects of long days and time zone changes. I think, why am I here, really? And then I do that thing that hopefully everyone learns to do at some point. I ignore my thoughts and feelings and do the thing I'll be happy to have done later. I get out of bed, put on my clothes, pack my bag, and descend the stairs of our apartment to the street below. I meet up with our small group in a white van outside the building just as everyone gets inside. The drive up begins like any other we've had during the trip, but the longer we are on the road, the more unique and beautiful it becomes. Not an hour afterward, I'm rewarded with snow-capped vistas, gorgeous windowed palazzos carved into mountains in yellows, blues, pinks, a blanket of so many greens I think the color green will never again be specific enough. I think instead emerald, pine, cactus, lime, forest, sage. The air is light and bright and tastes of wet snow and conifer. We get out to take pictures from afar, a hilltop village perched along a slope, not unlike the favelas I saw during a trip to Rio. We can hardly wait to get there. We all pile in the van and continue the winding road, refreshed by the chilly morning air. When our driver drops us off at the tourist center in this small mountainside village, we're greeted by a vivacious woman wearing a furry black cap and busty leather jacket. She spits out Italian so quickly that even those of us who know the language catch only every 4th word. She poses with us for a small selfie to post on the city's Facebook, sets us on a walking tour with a small foldable map, infuses us with life, and a welcome so warm I feel the homecoming even though it isn't mine. But in another way, I am from the mountains. Not of these mountains, but brothers or sisters of them in the west, Rockies full of aspens and alpenglow. The alpine air quickens my blood, and in another way, I'm from my fellow travelers, fellow students, fellow writers, part of the brother and sister in search of their grandfather. My own grandfather was a stranger to me. I know only that some years ago he also set foot in Sicily during World War II, and I feel closer to him here where he was young and full of courage and compassion, not back in Grand Forks where he was old and angry, stubborn, and unable to recall the name of his son or grandson. We set out on the tour and try to find our way into the ruins of a Byzantine fortification, Castelluccio, but it doesn't seem to be open to tourists this day. Still, seeing it carved out of the mountainside is humbling. We stand in front of pockmarked limestone ruins that precede us by at least 1,000 years. Down a dark alley to the left the road descends, but above it hangs like a painting, a hillside covered in green, no, emerald and sage, with winding roads freshly covered in bright white, and still higher an expanse of sapphire sky that contrasts with the focal point of this picture. We come across an old church, and though I'm normally not one to enter churches anymore, this one seems different. We have as much right to be in it as anyone, I think, maybe because I remember that we attend a private Catholic university, maybe because I remember that I was raised and confirmed Catholic, maybe because my grandfather once came to Sicily, maybe because I've become so thirsty for proof of God that I'd barge into any church at this point just to see some affirmation or consequence. Instead, it sits empty and quiet. The back doors open, letting the sunlight and cool air rush in. A large pipe organ hovers above those doors, and a tiny steel staircase spirals almost up to heaven. When we get out to the back courtyard of the church, the sun is higher in the sky than any of us expect, and we begin to fear that we don't have much time left. Eventually, we make the decision. The next morning is an early one, and we have to face the fact that if this felt like home for us once, it's not home now. We turn a corner, and as if by magic, we end up right where we started. Having no idea which direction we wandered, we were on a path from beginning to end the entire time. We are partially thrilled to have found our way back, as if following an invisible thread, and at the same time disappointed we can't steal another hour wandering the city to find our way back. The brother and sister who can trace their roots back here pose for more photos in front of the tourist booth. They embrace, shed cold tears that glisten in the afternoon light, and the shadows grow longer. Their reverence for place and past is so sincere it's contagious. We stand on cobblestone, carved into mountainside, thousands of miles from home, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. I can only think, I'm here. My grandfather accompanies me down the mountain somehow. I hide a few tears. Leaving the mountains will, for me, always be leaving home. He stays with me on our way to Malta. I board a flight from Catania and fly to an even smaller island, and I try to imagine what he looked like back then. I can only see him in black and white, a nose with a small bump, big front teeth, thinning hair, like me. After we arrive, we board a boat to take us across a small expanse of water, and I try looking up his obituary on my phone. The boat rocks as I read about his survival at the Battle of the Bulge. I read about the time he was awarded a Purple Heart with Oak Cluster. I read about his Silver Star, his Bronze Star. I read about a man I hardly knew, who never talked about his time in the service, who died before I had a chance to really know him. And later that day, on the way back to our hotel in Malta, which we stay in for 2 nights, I talked to a friend about the missing branches on my family tree, broken before my birth by arguments that no longer matter and probably shouldn't have in the first place. An estranged great-grandfather, a missing half-sister, the friend tells me that through an eerie coincidence she found herself introduced to a cousin she'd never known, and that the more time they spent together, the more they noticed the quirks and characteristics they had in common, mysterious gears and cogs hidden within their clockwork. When we get back to the hotel, I go up to my apartment and I wonder about my own quirks. From what do I come from? From where? From whom? My sweaty hands, my blonde hair, my arthritic knee, my sleeping habits, the way I look before I'm about to say something silly, my big teeth. How much of me is from who came before? How much of me is from Rocky Mountains? One night, exhausted from our exploration of the small island of Malta, 3 of us decide to stay in and have drinks and share pizza in our hotel lobby. With full, heavy hearts, we bring back to life people we've lost to keep us company. Grandfathers, grandmothers, fathers, mothers, ghosts of those we worry might follow. As we offer each other slices of pizza and empty our glasses, we also share our grief, and in the sharing, the burden becomes a bit more bearable, or just enough so that the next morning I see what remains in my life instead of what is gone from it. We leave Malta, return to Sicily for a wine tasting up on another hill in Etna. Everyone who wasn't with us at Castiglione is full of wonder at the sight, and on the way up, we drive next to the biggest rainbow I've ever seen, so bright it refracts a second rainbow that spans the same width. As we drive by the vineyards, I notice some of the terraces have been dug up to plant new vines. I wonder at the idea of digging up the past. If there is enough to be dug up that can explain my brown eyes and blonde hair, my pale skin and reddish beard. And even as my pen forms the letters on the page, I wonder if I come from writers, or musicians, or hard laborers, and what that would mean. Would the ink flow more slowly if I was so different from the people I came from? Or would it flow any more quickly if I wasn't? Maybe there is something in the knowing that makes it heavy. Maybe there is something in the absence that makes it light. Back at the apartment on our last day, I sit in the common room and write. I write about mountains, about beauty, about loss, about gratitude, and as I write, I'm carving marble, forming shapes in stone. It's easier to take away than to add, this creation from subtraction. I wonder, when I'm finished and the years erode my words into limestone dust, when they are ruined like so many stones on small islands off of small islands, what will come after? Thank you.